Hello, everyone. Welcome to 2025 English Podcast, the podcast where we help you unlock the confidence to speak English fluently. I'm Makram, your host for today, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Jessica. How are you doing today, Jessica?
Hi, Makram. I'm doing great, thank you. Hello to all our listeners. Whether you're just starting your English journey or trying to improve, this podcast is for you.
Today's episode is all about something that can make a big difference in how you speak English: thinking in English. Speaking English fluently is not just about learning words or grammar. It's about thinking in English. When you think in English, it helps you speak more naturally and fluently. Today, we'll talk about why thinking in English is so important. We'll also explore some common challenges learners face when trying to do this.
Yes, and we'll share some simple tips that you can use right away. These tips will help you start thinking in English, even if you're just a beginner. Don't worry, it's not as hard as it seems, and with practice, it becomes easier.
One big reason why thinking in English is so important is that it helps you save time. If you always translate from your native language to English in your head, it slows you down. Thinking in English lets you respond faster in conversations.
Exactly. And it's not just about speed. Thinking in English also makes your sentences more accurate. When you think in your native language and then translate, you might use words or structures that don't work well in English.
That's true, Jessica. For example, some phrases that work in one language don't make sense in English. Thinking in English helps you avoid these mistakes and sound more natural when you speak.
Another benefit is confidence. When you think in English, you feel more comfortable speaking because you don't have to stop and think about every word. It helps you focus on what you want to say, not how to say it.
Of course, thinking in English can be challenging at first. Your brain is used to thinking in your native language, so switching to English might feel strange. But with the right tips and practice, it's definitely possible.
Some learners find it hard because they don't know enough words or grammar. Others feel nervous about making mistakes. These are normal challenges, but they shouldn't stop you from trying.
We'll talk more about these challenges later and how you can overcome them. For now, just remember that thinking in English is a skill. Like any skill, it takes time and practice to improve.
And don't forget, we have a fun activity planned for the end of this episode. It's a great way to practice thinking in English, so make sure you stay with us until the end.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get to the activity, let's dive deeper into why thinking in English is such an important part of learning the language.
Whether you're speaking, listening, or even writing, thinking in English makes everything smoother. It's a small change, but it can have a big impact on your fluency and confidence.
So, are you ready to learn how to start thinking in English? Let's get started with some practical tips and examples that you can use in your daily life.
Yes, let's do it. Remember, every small step counts. Even if you only practice for a few minutes a day, it will help you become more fluent over time.
All right, let's move on to the next section. We'll start by talking about the common challenges learners face when trying to think in English.
Don't worry if you face these challenges. We're here to help you. By the end of this episode, you'll have the tools you need to start thinking in English with confidence.
Let's start by discussing why thinking in English is so powerful. When you think in English, you don't have to translate from your native language. This makes speaking quicker and more natural because your brain is already using English to form thoughts.
Yes, and it also helps you build better sentences. Instead of focusing on grammar rules while speaking, your brain starts forming sentences automatically. It's like training your brain to think like a native English speaker, which is very helpful for fluency.
Plus, it boosts your confidence because you won't hesitate as much. For example, imagine you're at a restaurant and the waiter asks, "What would you like to order?" If you've been practicing thinking in English, you can answer easily without pausing to translate.
Exactly. It saves time and makes you sound more fluent. When you're not translating, your speech is smoother, and you're less likely to get stuck trying to find the right words. This also helps you feel more confident in conversations.
Another reason thinking in English is important is that it helps you improve your vocabulary. When you think in English, you practice using the words and phrases you've learned. This makes it easier to remember them and use them correctly in the future.
That's a great point, Mukram. And it's not just about words, it's also about expressions and sentence patterns. Thinking in English helps you understand how sentences are built and how native speakers use the language in daily life.
It also reduces overthinking. Many learners feel nervous about making mistakes, so they spend too much time thinking about grammar or pronunciation. When you think in English, you focus more on communicating your ideas than being perfect.
Yes, and this is so important because language is about communication, not perfection. Even if you make small mistakes, the person you're speaking to will usually understand you. Thinking in English helps you stay focused on the conversation.
Thinking in English can also help you with listening skills. When your brain is used to English, it's easier to understand what others are saying. This makes conversations more enjoyable and less stressful, especially with native speakers.
That's true, Makram. It's like training your brain to recognize English as your primary language for communication. Over time, this makes speaking, listening, and even writing in English feel more natural and comfortable.
It's also a great way to prepare for real-life situations. For example, if you're traveling, working, or studying in an English-speaking environment, thinking in English will help you adapt quickly and handle everyday tasks with confidence.
Yes, and it's not just for adults. Even children learning English can benefit from thinking in English. It helps them learn faster and use the language more confidently in school, with friends, and in other activities.
So, whether you're a student, a professional, or someone who loves learning new languages, thinking in English can make a big difference in your journey. It's a skill that opens the door to fluency and better communication.
And the best part is, anyone can learn to think in English. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or advanced learner. The key is to practice consistently and be patient with yourself as you develop this habit.
To summarize, thinking in English helps you save time, build confidence, improve vocabulary, and communicate more naturally. It's one of the best ways to move closer to speaking fluently and enjoying the process of learning English.
That's right. And don't forget, it's okay to make mistakes along the way. Every mistake is a step forward because it teaches you something new. The important thing is to keep practicing and stay motivated.
Now that we've discussed why thinking in English is so important, let's move on to some challenges learners face when trying to think in English. We'll also share tips to help you overcome these challenges, so stay tuned.
Yes, stay with us, and we'll guide you through the steps to make thinking in English a natural part of your daily life. By the end of this episode, you'll be ready to start practicing right away.
Now, let's talk about the challenges. One big challenge is that many learners are used to thinking in their native language. Switching to English can feel unnatural at first. It's like training your brain to think in a new way, which takes time and practice.
That's true. Another challenge is vocabulary. If you don't know enough words, it's hard to think in English. You might find yourself thinking in your native language and then trying to translate everything, which can slow you down and make you lose confidence.
Exactly. Without a strong vocabulary, you might struggle to express your thoughts in English, but don't worry. The more you practice and learn new words, the easier it will become to think directly in English. It's all about expanding your word bank.
And let's not forget about fear. Many learners are afraid of making mistakes or not understanding everything. That fear can hold you back and prevent you from trying to think in English in the first place. It's normal to feel scared, but it's important to push through.
Yes, fear is a huge barrier. We all fear making mistakes, but mistakes are actually part of the learning process. When you speak or think in English, you'll make mistakes, and that's okay. Each mistake is an opportunity to improve and grow.
Another challenge is that many learners feel embarrassed about speaking English, especially when they're still getting used to thinking in it. This can make them hesitate to speak or practice. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get.
And then there's the challenge of overthinking. Sometimes, when learners focus too much on grammar, they end up overthinking every sentence. This can interrupt the flow of conversation and make it harder to think naturally in English.
Overthinking is very common. It's natural to want to get things perfect, but when you're trying to think in English, you need to focus on communication, not perfection. The goal is to get your ideas across, not to create the perfect sentence every time.
Another issue is that many learners get frustrated if they don't see progress quickly. Thinking in English takes time, and it's easy to feel like you're not improving. But don't get discouraged. Improvement is gradual, and small steps lead to big changes.
Yes, it's important to be patient with yourself. Learning a language is a journey, not a race. If you keep practicing and stay consistent, you'll see progress over time. Don't compare yourself to others. Focus on your own improvement.
One more challenge is the environment. If you're surrounded by people who don't speak English, it can be harder to practice. Without English around you, it can be tough to find opportunities to use the language regularly.
That's true. But even if you're not in an English-speaking environment, there are still ways to practice. You can use apps, watch English shows, or find language partners online to help you practice thinking in English regularly.
Yes, practicing in an environment where English isn't spoken can be tough, but it's not impossible. You can create your own practice environment by immersing yourself in English media or connecting with others who are also learning.
Exactly. It's all about finding ways to practice and making English a part of your daily routine. Whether you're talking to yourself, using language apps, or interacting with other learners, you can make progress even without living in an English-speaking country.
To sum it up, the main challenges in thinking in English include getting used to thinking in a new language, building your vocabulary, overcoming fear and mistakes, and creating a practice environment. But remember, these challenges are all part of the learning process.
That's right. The key is to stay positive, keep practicing, and not be afraid to make mistakes. Every challenge you face is just another step toward becoming more fluent in English.
So, don't let these challenges stop you. In the next section, we'll give you practical tips on how to overcome them and start thinking in English more naturally every day. Stay tuned.
Yes, and we'll make sure you have the tools to succeed. Keep listening for some simple, fun tips to help you on your journey to thinking and speaking in English.
Let's dive into some practical tips to help you start thinking in English. These tips will help you overcome the challenges we just talked about and make thinking in English feel more natural.
Tip 1. Label objects around you in English. For example, call your table a table in English instead of your native language. This is a simple way to start thinking in English throughout your day, even when you're not speaking to anyone.
Yes, this technique helps your brain start associating English words with real-world objects. The more you label, the more you begin thinking in English. You can start with things around the house, like book, window, or door, and work your way up to more complex words.
Tip 2. Practice self-talk. Describe your day in English. For example, I'm brushing my teeth now, or I'm cooking breakfast. By talking to yourself in English, you're not only practicing the language, but you're also reinforcing the habit of thinking in English.
Self-talk is an excellent way to keep your mind active in English. Even simple phrases like, I'm walking to the store or I'm eating lunch, will help you get into the habit of thinking in English without even realizing it.
Tip 3. Narrate your day in your mind. Imagine you're explaining your actions to a friend in English. You can mentally tell yourself, now I'm going to work, I'm having lunch, I'm talking with my friend. This is a great way to practice your English thoughts throughout the day.
Exactly. Narrating your day helps you practice both your vocabulary and your sentence structure. It's also a great way to stay immersed in English. You can also think about your plans for the day or what you've already done in English. This keeps your mind engaged.
Tip 4. Use apps and tools. For example, voice-to-text features on your phone can help you practice speaking and writing in English. When you speak to your phone, it turns your words into text, which is a great way to practice your pronunciation and sentence structure.
That's a great point. Apps like Google Translate or language learning apps can help you practice in real time. You can speak into your phone and see how your English sounds when it's transcribed. This helps you build confidence and see where you may need improvement.
Tip 5. Set small challenges, like thinking in English for 5 minutes a day, then increasing it to 10 minutes. Gradually extend the time you spend thinking in English each day. This will help make English a part of your daily routine without feeling overwhelmed.
Yes, starting small is key. The goal isn't to be perfect from the start, but to gradually increase your comfort with thinking in English. For example, set a timer for 5 minutes and just focus on thinking in English. As time goes on, you'll find it easier to extend those minutes.
And here's a bonus tip. Try dreaming in English. It may sound strange, but the more you practice, the more your brain will get used to it. Your brain will start processing English even while you sleep, which is a fun and powerful way to immerse yourself in the language.
That's a fun bonus tip. While it may seem unusual at first, dreaming in English is a sign that your brain is really starting to embrace the language. It's a way of immersing yourself so deeply in English that it becomes second nature, even in your subconscious.
The key takeaway here is that thinking in English doesn't happen overnight. But with consistent practice, it gets easier. Start with these simple tips and make them part of your daily routine. You'll be amazed at how quickly you can improve.
Exactly. Remember, the more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Just like any skill, learning to think in English takes time, but with patience and dedication, you'll get there.
So, try out these tips and keep challenging yourself. Practice every day, and you'll soon find that thinking in English becomes as natural as speaking it.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. We hope these tips help you take your English to the next level. Stay consistent and remember, practice makes perfect.
See you in the next episode. Keep practicing and stay positive. You've got this.
Now, it's time for a quick role play. Jessica and I will show you how thinking in English can help in real-life situations. Let's pretend we're planning a trip. This is a great way to practice thinking in English while discussing everyday topics.
Okay, Makram, I'll start. Where should we go this weekend?
Let's go to the mountains. We can hike and enjoy the fresh air. It'll be a great way to relax and get some exercise. What do you think?
That sounds great. What should we pack? I think we'll need some good shoes for hiking and some snacks for energy.
Good idea. We'll need comfortable shoes, water bottles, and maybe some snacks. How about a hat or sunscreen? The sun can be strong in the mountains.
Definitely. We don't want to get sunburned. Oh, and don't forget a camera. We can take pictures of the view and the beautiful nature around us.
Perfect. A camera is a must. We'll want to capture the moments. Listeners, you can try this kind of role play at home. Choose a scenario, like planning a trip, and think in English as you practice. It's a fun way to get better at thinking and speaking in English.
Exactly. You don't need to overthink it. Just start simple, like deciding where to go, what to pack, and how to get ready. You can even practice with a friend or family member. The goal is to get comfortable thinking in English during regular conversations.
Yes! The more you practice these small conversations, the more fluent you'll become. And remember, the key is to not translate from your native language. Just focus on expressing your thoughts directly in English.
Right. The more you practice role plays like this, the faster your brain will adapt to thinking in English. It won't take long before these simple conversations become second nature.
Exactly. And you can try different scenarios. For example, plan a dinner with a friend, or imagine you're shopping for clothes. Roleplay can be fun, and it's a great way to boost your confidence in using English in everyday situations.
So, for today's challenge, pick a simple scenario, like planning a trip or shopping for groceries, and practice thinking in English. It'll help you feel more confident when real-life situations come up.
Great suggestion, Jessica. Roleplay is a powerful way to build your fluency. Keep practicing, and before you know it, you'll be thinking and speaking in English with ease.
Remember, even small steps will get you closer to fluency. So start practicing role plays and try to think in English as much as you can every day. You'll be amazed at your progress.
Thanks for listening. We hope this roleplay was helpful. Keep practicing and stay positive. See you in the next episode.
Until next time, keep speaking in English and stay confident. You've got this. Now it's your turn. Today's challenge is to try one of the tips we shared, like self-talk or narrating your day. Start small and practice thinking in English whenever you can. Let us know in the comments how it went and how you're using these tips to improve your English.
Yes, we'd love to hear about your experiences. If you felt comfortable thinking in English or even found it difficult at first, share that with us. Remember, it's all about making progress, no matter how small. Your journey is what matters the most.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who's also learning English. The more, the merrier. Your support really helps us create more episodes like this, and we can continue helping you become fluent in English.
Exactly. Every bit of support helps us reach more learners, just like you. Also, if you have any questions or specific topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out to us. We love hearing from our listeners and want to make this podcast even more helpful for you.
For more practice, be sure to check out our other episodes and playlists. We've got lots of tips, exercises, and fun activities waiting for you. Whether you're a beginner or looking to improve your English skills, there's always something new to discover.
Yes, our other episodes dive deep into topics like pronunciation, grammar tips, and daily conversation practice. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, you'll definitely find more useful content in our other episodes.
Absolutely. Keep challenging yourself and practicing every day. The more you practice, the better you'll become. And remember, learning English is a journey, not a race. Stay consistent, stay motivated, and most importantly, have fun with it.
Yes, just like we say in every episode, practice makes progress. Keep at it, and soon you'll notice yourself thinking and speaking in English without even thinking about it.
Thanks again for listening, and we can't wait to hear about your progress. See you next time. Until then, keep speaking English and stay confident. You've got this.
Take care, everyone, and keep practicing. See you in the next episode. All right, let's wrap up today's episode. Remember, thinking in English is a small habit that can make a big difference in how naturally you speak. Start with small steps and don't worry about making mistakes. Progress takes time, and every little effort counts.
That's right. Keep practicing, stay patient, and most importantly, have fun. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. You're doing great, and we're here to help you every step of the way. So, keep up the good work.
Thanks for listening to 2025 English Podcast. We hope you found today's tips helpful and that you feel more confident to think in English. We'll see you in the next episode with more ways to help you improve your English. Take care and keep speaking English.
Bye, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. See you next time with more tips and fun activities to help you on your language learning journey.